This is our science video for Thursday, April 2nd. Make sure you're on the correct video and open up to your notes, please, where we were taking notes the other day. And we talked about those people that used to want to have more bivalves for themselves for fishing and collecting to sell and to eat. And they were really frustrated with those sea stars eating them all, so they were taking them, picking them up, ripping them in half or cutting them in half and throwing them back out into the ocean to help. Well, we were wondering yesterday if that helped or not. So today we're going to talk about making new sea stars. Sea stars, like many sea creatures, are able to regenerate parts of their body. So the vocabulary word we're looking for is regenerate. What does that mean? What does it mean to regenerate? Well, just as crabs and lobsters are able to grow new chelipeds if they lose them, sea stars are able to grow new rays. Actually, sea stars are better at regeneration than most other creatures. Not only can a new ray grow when a ray is torn off, but if the torn off ray has even a small piece of the central disc still attached, a whole new sea star can grow from one ray. So if we had our sea star, and we have this central disc, and we were to just cut it just like this, do you see how there's a little bit of this central disc left? Well, and we threw it over to the side, and it had this little piece like this. Guess what? This one can make a whole new sea star. Can you believe that? It's pretty incredible. Sea stars are sometimes known to intentionally break off a ray and a piece of a central disc just so another sea star can grow. Not only will the ray that was broken off grow back, but the arm that broke off will also grow into an exact copy of the original sea star. In other words, sea stars can clone themselves. How interesting is that? And if you look on page 176 of your book today, you'll see this sea star lost 4 of its 6 rays, but it is regenerating them. That's why the 4 rays on the right are smaller than the other 2 rays. It's very interesting. Do you remember the question I asked you about the clam fishermen? They were trying to reduce the sea star population by cutting the sea stars in half and throwing them back into the ocean. Did you think that that was a good idea? Well, now you know that that is not a good idea. Instead of reducing the number of sea stars, they were increasing the number of sea stars because every sea star they caught and cut in half became 2. Next, let's talk about our next kind of star, which is our brittle star. If you find a fast-moving sea star with long, thin, snake-like arms, you have not seen a sea star at all. You have seen a brittle star, and you'll see a picture of a brittle star there on page 176, and you can see that they're similar. Brittle stars are thought to be much more fragile than sea stars, which is how they got their name, brittle. It was probably named a brittle star when someone picked up one arm and it fell off. At first, this makes the animal seem brittle. However, like a crab, a brittle star will drop its arm to escape it if it is touched. It's not really brittle, however. It sometimes does break itself. So if you ever see a brittle star and pick it up, it may fall apart in your hands on purpose. This is a defense that God gave these little creatures to escape from predators. Interestingly, brittle stars do not use their tube feet for movement, but instead use muscles in their long, thin arms to scuttle rapidly about wet and dry surfaces. They are fast movers. This makes them very different from sea stars, as sea stars move slowly while they creep along the sea floor. Though there are hundreds of thousands of brittle stars near the shore, you aren't likely to run across one on the beach or in a tide pool. Why is that? Well, during the day, they hide under anything that they can find, only coming out at night to feed. Though they are extremely numerous, they are nocturnal. Do you remember what nocturnal means? Yes, they do their hunting and their living at night, and they sleep during the day. This makes them fairly hard to find. Now, it's important to note that not all brittle stars are tiny fragile stars that I've been telling you about so far. As scientists have studied more and more sea life, they have found that there are many different kinds of brittle stars. Basket stars, for example, are large brittle stars with many rays. Although some people mistake these brittle stars for plants, they are definitely animals. And you can see a picture of that basket star. It's really cool. It's on someone's hand. And it's on page 177. Check that picture out. Do you see all the arms it has? And it has many rays on it. If you look at the picture of the basket star, you will see that the rays form many branches so that they are almost feathery on the ends. This is important as basket stars are filter feeders. They use their branched rays, which are covered with a sticky substance, to catch plankton from the water so they can eat the plankton. They get their name because they stretch their rays out to catch plankton, and they tend to look like the bottom of a basket. Because they are nocturnal, they stretch out at night. During the day, they generally sleep by curling into a tight ball. So those were our basket stars. So we've learned about brittle stars. We've learned about basket stars. And they all looked a little bit different. Remember, the brittle star kind of was really skinny and then had these things coming off of it. What I'm drawing kind of looks like a snowflake, but I think it'll help us remember. Like this. And then our basket star kind of had that thicker middle, and then it had what looked like branches of a basket coming off. Remember that? And then it had little ones that kind of started to curve in, and it started to look like a basket. Can you draw a basket star? There's my basket star. Okay, so the next thing we're going to learn about is a crinoid. So crinoids can also be mistaken for plants. These creatures, commonly called sea lilies and feather stars, have feathery arms on top of cup-shaped bodies. So the next thing we're learning about today are crinoids. Make sure I spell it correctly. Okay, and you might have heard of these as sea lilies or feather stars. Unlike the sea star, which generally has its mouth facing down towards the seafloor, the feather star's mouth faces upward towards the surface of the ocean. This mouth is surrounded by many feathery tentacles. Some crinoids have 5 feathery arms, while others have many more. So if you look on page 178, that's a really neat picture of this feather star or a sea lily. As plankton eaters, most crinoids are nocturnal. However, you may see a feathery star during the day with its arms rolled up into a little ball. Feather star arms are not called rays, but they're called pinnules. So their little arms or rays, like we call the rest, are not called rays. These are called pinnules. Okay? Each pinnule is coated with a sticky material to catch the plankton that drifts up towards the surface of the sea at night. A crinoid also has feelers known as cirri attached to the bottom of its body. These cirri cling to sponges or corals, so it uses these cirri to cling on to things. It's called it cirri, C-I-R-R-I. And it uses this cirri to cling to the sponges or corals. Though crinoids look like plants, they do not stay in one place like plants do. They can crawl, roll, walk, and even swim. However, they only do that if they need to move because of danger or because they are not getting enough food. If everything is fine, a crinoid can stay in one place, clinging to sponges or corals, waiting for the moment when the nightly plankton swim past. Unlike a sea star, a crinoid doesn't use its 2 feet for walking, only for passing food along to its pinnules to its mouth. Good job taking notes today, guys. Make sure you get all the notes off the board.